Today we're going to talk about the transfer of title. Title is an aspect in real estate that is handled by the attorneys and the title company. Title is an etherical idea, meaning you have never seen title. No one's ever seen it in their life. You may have seen the deed or the title insurance policy. It's kind of like an idea. No one sees an idea. You have an idea, and then I build the wheel and go, here was my idea, and he sees the wheel, but he didn't see the idea. That's how title works. I like to say that title, to me, if you're a gamer, and I'm an old gamer, wasn't it Zelda that had the little diamond on top of her head, and when she bumped into another person, that diamond moved over? That's kind of how title is. We have title, or I own title, and then I go through a sale, and now that new person owns the title, and I don't have it anymore. That's how title works, and we're going to explain it. We're going to talk about some of the fundamental concepts of what title is, and we already know the legal definition. The legal bundle of rights is the definition of title, okay? We're going to talk about how you can transfer title, and there are several different ways to transfer title, and then we'll actually even talk about transferring title when you're dead. I love this chapter because there's about 15 keywords in here, and I love going through them and just watching people's eyes glaze over as we go through them. All right? So let's begin. First of all, title serves for two purposes. It actually shows that you are the right to the ownership and that you, in fact, can transfer those rights to another person. So when I own title, the title proves ownership. It also serves as, well, it serves as the evidence of ownership, and it also gives me the right to transfer it to someone else. And you can transfer the ownership in two methods. Now, we've already talked about this, and it's just now on this slide, but we've talked about the OR, and you'll see a point in here, grantor, grantee, vendor, vendee, mortgagor, mortgagee. Now's when you're going to start running into these ideas. There are two ways to transfer title. The first one is called voluntary alienation. All right? Voluntary alienation. What's that mean? What's voluntary mean? You choose to do it. And alienation means you're giving it away, or you left, or it's going to leave you, like you alienate your children or a country you can alienate. So you're voluntarily giving away property. And you can do that either through a sale or through a gift. So you can choose to do it. When you do that, you use this mechanism called a deed. A deed is the symbolic piece of paper that one person uses to hand to the other person to show that title change. All right? The person that's getting rid of the property, we call probably the seller, is called the grantor. They're the ones granting the property to the other person. The person receiving that grant is the grantee. Probably seller, buyer is a better common word, but attorneys need to use big words so they can justify their pay. So it's the grantor and the grantee. The deed works like a match. When I have a match and I strike the match and I light my cigar and I transfer the heat from the match to my cigar, what do I do with a match? Throw it away. Guess what? You can do that with your deed. Because a deed does not show ownership. All a deed shows is that ownership transferred at that particular time. So when a deed from the grantor is given to the grantee, there's the boop, and now the title moves over to the buyer. The buyer literally can throw it away. And when the buyer goes to sell, the title company will make a whole new deed for him. So keeping the deed really doesn't do much for you. They record the deed so that there's proof and evidence in the recorder's office that we, in fact, did do a transfer, but it's virtually useless after the transfer happens. It's a symbolic piece of paper from the grantor to the grantee that shows that title, which is what we really want, was passed from one to the other. right?
Title. You don't have a piece of paper for a title if you own your house?
You have the title insurance policy, which we're going to talk about, which ensures that you own the title. But the title, so to speak, no one can see. It's a concept.
It's not like a car then.
It's entirely different from a car. Matter of fact, I'll use that analogy a little later in the course.
It's not the certificate of ownership.
Deed does not prove ownership.
No, deed is the certificate of transfer.
It just transfers the ownership.
Title is
Title insurance.
physically, we can't say that title is the certificate.
Okay, we'll get into the analogy now then. In the car scenario, you guys go and get your insurance policy, and to prove you own the car, what do you show them? The title. It works 180 degree different in houses. To prove you own it, you show someone your insurance policy. All right? The title insurance policy. This is how title companies get into it. And this whole course you guys are asking is what I'm going to explain these 2 chapters. Because if a company is willing to write an insurance policy naming you as the owner, what are the odds that you think they've done all the checking and all that and they're pretty sure you're the owner? 100%. All right? So cars, we use the title to prove ownership to get our insurance. In houses, we use the insurance to prove ownership to get the title or to get the deed. Okay?
So it works the same when you pay off your home, it works the same way? Like if your house is paid for?
What do you mean?
Yeah,
Wait, okay, hold on a second, just so I can capture. What was your question again? Say it again.
So like if your house is paid off.
Does it work the same as your house?
Yeah.
I have a title insurance policy on my house the day I buy it. And that insurance policy is in force through the entire ownership that I have the house. You would still want title insurance, all right? You guys are getting ahead of the game. I hope I'll clear it up for you. When you own your property free and clear, you don't have a lien, but you still may have title insurance because there are liens out there, and I don't want to get too far ahead, that are public and private. So you want to make sure that there's no one out there trying to claim. Remember quiet enjoyment? One of the 5 rights. I told you have the right to be left alone without unjustly coming after you. That's why you want to go and run this title search, potentially, to make sure there is no one out there coming to get my house unjustly, even if I own it free and clear. Okay?
So, like, when you pay your car off, you get the title. They send you the title in the mail, or it's a piece of paper you own. Is that what you're asking when you pay your house off?
Well, yeah, because the title company, how does the title company get proof that you own the home?
They do title search. Hold on. Here's the problem with this chapter. I'm not picking on you 2 guys because you guys know the answer. I'm showing you how we get to that answer, so bear with me, all right? And one of the major differences, and one of the things I hate about this book, I don't like the order. And here comes the unsolicited pitch. In my book, I changed the order. Because one of the things you guys haven't caught on to yet, because I haven't told you, is cars work under what we call title theory. Houses work under lien theory. That's the big difference. You guys have heard the saying, one more payment and this baby's mine, right? That doesn't work. That's not true with houses. The second I buy a house, I own it. I may own the bank some money, but that's a lien. Cars work differently. Cars, the company owns it, and if I don't make the payment, they come and get the car, which we call repossessing. That's why you can repossess a car or miss one payment. Repossess a house takes a lot longer because it's a court action. Because I own the house, all right? So we'll get into that in chapter 14 about lien theory versus title theory. That's the big difference why the car analogy doesn't work 100% like houses. But the opposite's true as far as proof of ownership to get insurance versus proof of insurance to prove ownership. Okay?
Why are we even comparing the two? Car and house.
Hey, I didn't start this.
Oh, okay. So this has got me more confused.
Because I said you get a title when you own your house.
Because a lot of people use the word title for the car. and they buy a car, and then when you pay the car off, you get the title.
Okay.
All right? Believe it or not, there are some states that work their houses that way. We are not one of those. All right? For instance, Texas, California. They are title theory states, and we'll talk the difference between those. Title theory states work just like we do our cars. You have to pay it off before you get the ownership. In lien theory states like us in Illinois and Kentucky, we are a lien theory, which means I own it. I just owe somebody money on it. You can't come take it from me without a court action. All right? That's the big difference between the two. Some states do homes like we do cars. That's where, I guess, part of the analogy. Yeah. That's why foreclosure in Indiana is 18 to 24 months. Foreclosure in some states could be as little as three months. And we'll go over all of that here in a minute. Well, not today, but in other chapters. So let me get through this deed thing, and I'll show you, and then hopefully you'll answer all your questions. If it doesn't get yours, Chavez, let me know, all right? So a deed is a legal document. As such, a legal document requires certain things to be in it. For instance, the grantor. Who's the grantor again? The seller. In order to create a legal document, the grantor has to be of legal age and sufficient mental capacity to understand the ramifications of the outcome, or not an IU grad. That's a Purdue grad saying that, by the way. So the grantor or the seller has to be 18 or in the right mind, which is, you hear that sound mind and body, because we're going to get into wills. It's the same thing. Got to be sufficient age, which in Indiana's got to be 18 to transfer real estate, or mental capacity, which goes back to the life estate that we talked about when I told you the guy may have a handicapped child and he wants the handicapped child taken care of. Potentially that handicapped child can't own real estate because of this clause of not sufficient mental capacity to understand the ramifications of the outcome, so you give it to the nurse. That's where the life estate came in, because a grantor has to meet that needs. All right? The grantee is the buyer. Interesting fact, the buyer doesn't, just the seller does. But the buyer has to be identified in such a manner that he can be separated from the rest of the public. What that means is, I cannot sell my house to my bestest buddy. That doesn't sufficiently ID a person. It would have to say Brent J. McLaren so that we can ID Brent J. McLaren. I can't sell it to my oldest cousin's nephew. That's not sufficiently ID'd enough. So while the grantee is named in the deed, he doesn't sign it. Just the grantor. I heard that. Who? Oh, that was me. Must have consideration. What is consideration? Money. All right? You are going to see, here's another analogy of Holly. That one didn't finish up here. Let's bring in another analogy. Wedding vows are legal documents. That's why you have certain things that you have to say. And one of them, for the consideration, a document has to have value. And the value in marriage is what? For those of you at home, she said $15. No, but I have found the value of dignity. Apparently, it's one bottle of Mad Dog 2020. That's the value of your dignity. What's the value in the wedding vows? Love, honor, cherish, right? That's what they say. That has value to people that are getting married. In the real estate world, we sell property at what they call an arm's length transaction. Arm's length transaction means I don't know you. If I don't know you, love, honor, and cherish have no value. So in the real estate world, consideration means money. Got to have money. Got to have consideration. And you can't charge money for love. That's a whole separate crime. Never mind. Matter of fact, in that paragraph on page 104, you will see the generic statement that is in all deeds. It says, for $10 and other good and valuable consideration. So theoretically, even when I say you can give property away, there's a $10 value attached to it so that it can fulfill the needs of a legal contract. All right? It says, for $10 and other good and valuable consideration. That's written in the deed automatically so that the deed fits the definition of a legal contract, because love, honor, and cherish has no value amongst people that are selling at an arm's length transaction. So we put money in there. In the wedding vows, love, honor, and cherish is the consideration of that contract. And if you've ever been married in the Catholic Church, remember they say marriage is a contract. He's actually 100% correct. Everything in this contract you will see in the wedding vows. All right? Now, the next clause deals with the granting clause. The granting clause. This is the clause or the paragraph that tells what I'm giving to the other person. What am I granting? Remember, I'm the grantor, and I'm granting property. There are 4 major granting clauses. All right? Probably only seen one of them. All right? Maybe 2, if you've been in the business. All right, what I'm going to do is stop this audio and move to the next file.